everyone. Welcome back to Susan Dawn at Spiritual Connections. I thought that this was going to be its own little moment before our Sacred Union Energy update, and we are going to have a Sacred Union Energy update this week, but I really feel like this deserves its own video. I feel a bit nervous coming on because this is deeply personal. At the same time, I'm going to be keeping a lot of what I experienced sacred and private. But my job, my role as a guide, as a teacher, is to help you navigate your journeys as well. And so part of that is sharing my own experiences so that you can relate to it, so that you can reflect on your own experiences, so that you can kind of understand the journey on a deeper level too. And you have all of that understanding within yourself. I want to emphasize that and make that very clear. As a guide, as a teacher, I am literally just facilitating what you already know, your own remembrance, helping you remember your own empowerment, helping you remember your own energy and your own union as a whole. And so remember too that there is no one blueprint or framework when it comes to the true twin flame journey. There are a lot of teachers and a lot of coaches out there, and some who are extraordinary. But there are also some who seem to think that there has to be one right way to do it, and that's according to them. As a guide, as a teacher, as a healer, as a whatever it is that you want to call me, what I'm doing is I am literally just facilitating your own remembrance, your own sacred journey, helping you remember your own path. Because union is deeply personal, your counterpart connection is deeply personal, your ascension journey is deeply personal. It is personal. Your connection to God is personal. It is for you. That is found within. But there's so much distraction, there is so much confusion, there is so much illusion in the world that we tend to look outside of ourselves rather than looking within. And that's literally all that we're facilitating in our readings, and even in personal readings, in our teachings. We are just bringing you home closer to yourself and helping you remember that within yourself. And so true twin flame journeys, there is no one blueprint or framework for union. It is a personal journey and path that you create within yourself. And there might be collective stages, there might be collective experiences and phenomena, and that's beautiful too because it makes us remember that, hey, we might not be crazy because this journey is so wild. When we're first activated to our ascension, even though we might have been very spiritual in the past throughout our journeys, when we're first activated to ascension, we're activated to a deeper level of connecting to our soul, connecting to the universe, connecting to God, connecting to each other. And that brings about a lot of phenomena. And that experiencing that phenomena can be very exciting, but it could also be very ungrounding. And so as we are going through that process, having other people say, hey, I've experienced this too, you're not crazy, this is something that is real, helps us bring that home to ourselves. But we are at the stage now in our what I call higher heart ascension, where we are bringing that back home into a grounded state, where the first part of our journey might have been where we were activated and there were all these triggers, where we were clearing out those old beliefs and old patterns and old programs that might have served us at one point, or that we might have attached to at one point, but it doesn't serve us anymore. Because what we're coming home to, what we're rooting into, is authentic, our authentic self, our true self, our sacred self, our soul self. What is it to be connected to God, the universe, our counterparts, each other, all the time? Where it doesn't feel so strange, it doesn't feel so phenomenal. It is a natural occurrence because what we're connecting to is love. And that might sound so woo woo and that might sound so cliche, but it's true. And when we tap into our hearts, when we tune into our souls, we can feel the truth of that it is all love. It is all meant to be love. And not in the the ungrounded way, not in the I'm going to stay up here in the spiritual way, but in the anchoring it in way, in the integrated way, in the hey, I'm still human, but I am always connected spiritually. I am always connected to God. God is always guiding me. Source is everywhere around me. And I'm always feeling this love because I recognize now that I am love. And so love is reflected back to me. This world can make us feel so cynical and jaded. And I get it. There is nothing that I channel or that I teach that I haven't experienced for myself. I'm on this journey too. I've said that since the beginning. And if you've been with me since the beginning, you have seen my actual evolution through this journey. All of my videos here are my own actual evolution through my own spiritual journey. So there's nothing that I share or teach that I haven't experienced for myself. And I say that because I feel like that's important for you to recognize that I'm not just blowing smoke up your asses. I'm not about that, and I never have been. What I am about is going deep into understanding what your beliefs are, going deep into the transformation, going deep into that love, going deep into that connection, because that is where you're found. You're not found in the ethereal, you're found in the integration of recognizing, hey, I am a human being having a human experience, but I am bringing all those codes down, all those teachings, all that wisdom, all of that, those tools down into my physical experience. So when we're doing tarot or when we're channeling or when we are connecting, it is all beautiful tools to help us with our journey come back to that sacred remembrance that is always inside of us, within that higher heart. That higher heart is always online. That higher heart is always connected. So we're clearing all of that trauma and all the triggers and all of the beliefs and all the programs and conditioning that says we have to think one way. And what we're doing is we're tuning in to our sacred self, to our intuition. And that's why it's so important to have discernment on our journey, because there are so many people who are telling you it has to be this way or it has to be that way. Guides are meant to help facilitate your experiences, your journeys, and to also foster community that says, hey, you truly are not alone, while helping you nurture your own personal connection to yourself, your counterpart, and God. I say that because I'm going to share some of my own personal experience. And I want to have a disclaimer that my personal experience does not have to look like yours. However, there are going to be certain, how should we say, certain ideas around what the journey looks like. They're going to resonate with you and help you along your own journey as well. So I'm trying to be careful with what I say for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I want to be very clear with where I stand as a teacher, as a guide. Number two, because some of what I'm sharing is very personal to my story, and I want to make sure that you are resonating with it when it comes to your own. Not something that needs to be copied, but something that's what it is. It's just a resonance, so you can say, okay, how can I apply those teachings to my own experience? Not for the outcome, not for the same expectation, but for the growth, for the evolution, because that is your key for your ascension journey. That is the key for your sacred union, and that is what is personal for you. Remember, it is your journey of empowerment, your journey of honoring yourself, your journey of home to yourself, your sacred union. I'm also being careful with what I say because a lot of what I'm saying is very personal and sacred, and I want to keep it private, personal, and sacred. So I'm going to try to navigate this in the best way that I can. All of that being said, I saw my sacred partner this weekend. It was unexpected, but also it wasn't. And I'm going to explain why. We've felt this momentum building over the course of the past couple of months, over the course of the past couple of weeks. All of our channelings from March and April were helping us navigate this energy. All of the cosmic support that was coming in for March and April was helping us navigate this energy. So you can go back to all of our sacred channelings. I really encourage you guys to watch the sacred channelings for the deep dives, and not just our readings, but also our readings. They have a lot of depth to them and activations in them. So watch the ones that you're called to, or rewatch the ones that you're called to, because they are meant to be timeless and to help support you in your journey. So all of this energy was helping to support unions. And as we've been channeling, there has been this kind of reset energy. We've been channeling for years now, and I talked about this in my book as well. We've been channeling for years now that when you come back into reunion and reconciliation with your counterpart, and that can look different for everybody, and that's why I want you to take a moment and discern what it means for you and your story, you and your life, you and your journey. And that goes across the board for any teacher, healer, and guide, or reader, or whatever, any coach. Take what resonates for you. Make sure you have that discernment. If it doesn't fit, don't make it fit. Keep following your intuition. Keep following your heart. We've been channeling for a while the reunion and reconciliation energy, that when you come back into reunion reconciliation with your counterpart, that could look like the same counterpart who was activated you and was a catalyst for your journey, that you call twin flame. Could be the same counterpart coming back in a new energy because of their own ascension, because of their own evolution, because of their own growth. For others, it could be a counterpart that counterpart might have been a catalyst, but that might not be the person, or it could be that it's not the right time, and so you might be continuing your journey with another counterpart, somebody new, a new physical person. It could be a higher level soulmate too. There is no right or wrong way to do this journey. And anybody who is claiming that there's a right or wrong way, or anybody who's claiming, oh, well, my twin flame came back and you're in a higher level soulmate connection, or you have a new counterpart, and using that to be in a place of superiority, or who is using that to discount your journey, really question their intentions, because I call bullshit on that. I'm calling that shit out. Your journey is sacred to you. And however your journey is playing out, it is something that is sacred. It is something that is meant for you. It is something that is meant to be honoring of you. You are never meant to stay stuck in a connection just because of a label. You are never meant to stay stuck in a connection just because of other people's blueprints or other people's frameworks, or because other people, coaches, guides, gurus say that that's your person. That's where you have to tune into your heart. And with my personal one-on-one clients within the Higher Heart Academy, we emphasize that your journey, your sacred union, honoring yourself, empowering yourself, having that discernment, and trusting your intuition, trusting yourself is the key, and will always be the key to unlocking your union. Because remember, you're always in union. There is nothing to unlock. There is nothing to seek. Your union is within you. That is the key to remembering that and honoring that. And so your journey is perfect for you. I have clients who have been activated to their sacred union ascension without a counterpart, who are now meeting counterparts. I have others who have been married to their counterpart, and their counterpart is shifting, growing, and changing as they're shifting, growing, and changing. And it's night and day between where they were working with me a year ago to where they are now. I have seen clients who have moved on from toxic relationships and moved on from who they thought was a twin flame because they were catalyzed to their journey with that person, to meet soulmates and even true twin flame connections and counterparts, their true sacred partner. These are all labels, and we use these labels to try to differentiate between the energy that we're feeling, but at the end of the day, it's just an energy, and you are the only one who knows what is real for you. I always used to say, it didn't matter if it was my twin flame. It didn't matter if it was a soulmate. It didn't matter. What mattered to me was that I loved this person, that was my counterpart. I loved him. That was it. That was the only thing that mattered, was my love for him. I loved who we were together. I loved what we were creating. I loved who he was, is. I don't want to speak in past tense, but I loved him. That was the only thing that mattered. All the labels didn't matter. I was never attached to a label. I use the label now because it is a way in which I'm able to teach in a way that makes sense to my community. But the labels don't matter. What matters is how you feel. What matters is tuning into the energy. How does it feel when you tune into the energy of this person? How does it feel when you tune into the energy of this connection? How does it feel within your heart space when you get really real and honest and vulnerable with yourself? Not what your mind is trying to make up, not what your mind is trying to fill in with all those blanks, not what other people are trying to say it is. You get to decide. You're the only one who knows what this is. And as you go along your ascension journey, you're able to hold space for it. You're able to hold space for two realities. This could be my person, but maybe it's not time. This is my person, but the relationship feels too triggering, or it feels too toxic, or it feels like there's still some growth that needs to happen. It feels like we're not aligned. And that's where I've been for the past couple of years within our own separation. That separation, as hard as it was, I can see was also a gift, because I spent so much of that time learning about myself, trusting myself, believing in myself, and believing in my counterpart in this connection and this journey without the physical evidence. In fact, there were times when I was confronted with the physical that seemed so counterintuitive to what I was experiencing within my own self, within my own soul. And that's what was so confusing when I was actually with my counterpart. We spent much of our relationship together. When I was actually with him, I was so confused because there was a part of me that was feeling so much intuitively, but the outside wasn't matching. And I said, how can that be? But there was still a lot that I had to learn to validate that within myself, to not seek outside of myself for that, to be able to hold space for all these different realities, and to be able to hold that belief within myself without needing anything outside of myself. That's when I began to anchor into my own inner union, where I began to tune into the energy. Well, I was always tuned into the energy, but I really began to not worry about what the physical was or what was happening. In fact, I said, okay, I accept this is a physical reality right now, but what feels most real to me is love. What feels most real to me is what I'm connecting to. What feels most real to me is the energy that I'm tuning into within my own union, within myself. And when I say my own union within myself, I mean I had done a lot of work within finding that balance within my own inner masculine and inner feminine. That's why I always say, when you're watching our readings, make sure you're watching not just for a physical counterpart, although it's going to reflect perhaps in your physical experience, but take it for your inner masculine and inner feminine as well. Because with these twin flame connections, your counterpart is your inner masculine reflected. And for the masculine, their inner feminine is you reflected. Now, there's a lot of nuance there, there's a lot of context there, and I encourage you guys to read my book if you want to learn more about the whole of the journey and our teachings. But coming into union within yourself, finding that balance within yourself, being able to hold the energy of your own feminine within the container of your balanced, stable, and grounded masculine, that is your inner union. And when you anchor that into yourself, the world has no choice but to reflect that back to you. No choice. And for some, that will be that counterpart that's returning in their growth and their evolution. For others, it's going to be another sacred partner or another counterpart in a physical person. But it's always going to reflect back to you. And that's the space that you hold. You hold the space for union. You just hold the energy of union within yourself, knowing that sacred union is meant for you. There is no way that you're activated to this path of ascension if sacred union is not meant for you. But you don't have expectations for what that looks like, because what that is it's just love. It is just love. For myself, man, I can't even articulate, I can't even articulate all of the context here of everything I've experienced and everything I've come to know and understand about my own journey, my own experiences, about what sacred union is, or even where I've been and what I've been learning. Um, I will do my best. Going forward, I know I've done my best in our previous channelings and readings. It's just, there are some things that there are just no words for, that you just have to experience and discover for yourself. And that's where I'm here to help hold space for that. I will say that where I've been is just holding space for the unfolding. And I've been doing so in such a way where I have embodied my own self honoring, my own divine feminine energy, my own inner masculine energy, and really affirming peace. When it came to my physical counterpart connection, all I wanted was peace. All I wanted was peace and friendship, and just for there to be love flowing between us again, harmony flowing between us again. And what that actually looks like as far as physical representation, like a relationship or a connection, I didn't have any expectation, and I still don't. I don't have any expectation. All I know is that desire for peace and harmony and love will always reside in my heart, because that is what I know now is unconditional love. And that's what I realized over these past 2 years of no contact, separation, whatever it is that we want to call it, was that's all I wanted for him too. For him to be happy and healthy and at peace. And that's what I wanted with each other. These past 2 years, it's like a lifetime. Even these past 2 months is like a lifetime. So much has cleared, so much has grown, so much has shifted within myself. I feel like a brand new person. And that's the rebirth that we are constantly going through along our ascension journey. I've been channeling that when you meet your counterpart, it's really important to let go of the past. That does not mean that you don't have conversations about the past. That does not mean that you don't share where you've been. It doesn't mean that you don't share who you are now. It just means that you're letting go of the old energy that we've been holding on to, the old version of themselves, the old version of you, the old version of who you were together. You have to let go in order for there to be growth, in order for there to be an evolution, in order for your relationship to shift and change. And that's especially important within a conscious connection, within a relationship. And that is applied to every dynamic you will ever have. I say this in my book, all of our twin flame teachings can be applied to any conscious connection too, as it should be. Because what the twin flame journey is about, again, is about healing and growth and coming home to yourself, and that is reflected in everything around us. It's even reflected in every relationship we have, even the more abstract relationships, like our relationships with our jobs or careers or businesses, our relationships with money, our relationships with family, friends, children. Who we are is a reflection in the world around us. And that's why it's so important to look at your beliefs and do the deep dives. That's why it's so important to shift how you see yourself. That's where the healing is. That's where the true healing is. It's in the embodiment of who you are. And that's why you ask yourself, who do I want to be? Who do I want to become? I don't know if I'm stalling or if I'm just trying to better explain where I've been. Because again, this is not something that I can truly articulate, this shift, this change. But I'm trying to, because I want you to understand how important it is that it's coming from within you. It's not coming from seeking outside of yourself. It's not coming from chasing your counterpart. It's not coming from seeking external validation. It's not even coming from paying attention to external circumstances. It's not. It's all coming from your beliefs and what you're affirming. And not in the passive kind of affirmations that we know in the spiritual community, but really truly knowing and believing. It's almost bringing tears to my eyes because that's what I've been believing in for the past 2 years. There was a time a year ago where I almost wanted to give everything up because my physical reality looked so different from what I felt inside my soul, from my own inner knowing, that I really had a hard time believing in myself, believing in what I channel. And I constantly said, maybe I'm actually not helping the community like I think I am. Maybe I am actually more detrimental to people's experiences. I really had a crisis of faith. And I shared some of that with you guys, but I kept most of that to myself. But it was hard. It was one of the hardest things I ever experienced because there was so much self doubt. So much self doubt. And one of my biggest desires is to be of service, is to make sure that I'm helping people. And the only way I can do that is by, now I know, honoring myself and what I know to be true. And it is truly up to you in your sacred journey to take what resonates with you and to apply that in a way that resonates for you. But as a teacher, as a guide, as a healer, as a coach, I do take a lot of responsibility because I it's one of my values that I'm always trying to be authentic. I'm always trying to be in my integrity. And so I take my work very seriously. I do. This is not willy-nilly for me. This is something that is very sacred to me. And so I try to apply that with all of my teachings and everything that I do. So I really struggled over the past year. But there also became a shift where I really began to believe in myself. And that was very hard for me because I grew up believing that believing in myself meant, being in a place of arrogance or conceit. If I believed in myself, then maybe that was even taking away from somebody else. If I valued myself, maybe that was taking away from somebody else. If I claimed something for myself, desire, wish, or dream, then maybe that meant taking away from somebody else. But do you see that was such a lack mindset? That was such a scarcity mindset. The universe has enough for all of us. And what is meant for you is meant for you. What you desire is meant for you. It doesn't take away from anybody else's happiness. It doesn't devalue anybody else. In fact, that's part of helping each other, nurturing each other, and uplifting each other. It doesn't take away from anybody else, especially not yourself. But I was modest to a fault. There was a time when I was invited up to my alma mater, up at my university, by my creative writing professor, and she wanted me to speak to her class and the community about what it means to be a successful author. And I said, I'm not a successful author. I said, what are you talking about? I'll never forget. She took me aside and she said, I don't ever want to hear you diminish yourself like that. I don't ever want to hear you speak like that. She said, you are successful. You're successful because not only of the things that you've accomplished, but because of who you are. And that began to change me. That began to shift everything. And it took going back to those going back to those moments over this past year to remember that, hey, yeah, I have value too. Hey, yeah, I can believe in myself. And especially I can believe in what I channel and what I teach. It's especially hard being spiritual, being psychic, channeling, because you don't have that validation. You don't. You have to trust. And that's what we learn along our sacred union journey. We have to trust. We have to trust in ourselves. And as a psychic, doing readings for clients, the reason why I don't like doing face-to-face readings so much is because it catches me off guard. I'm constantly checking to see, hey, is this resonating? Is this not resonating? And what I've come to realize is, it'll resonate later. If it doesn't right now, it's okay. It will resonate later because I have to trust in the messages that I receive. But I don't like doing those face to face readings because I doubt myself too much. And so that's why when you get a recorded reading with me, which by the way, we're doing a fundraiser reading this month, so stay tuned. When you get a recorded reading with me, it enables me to do the deep dives. It enables me to go really deep into your energies and your journey and bring through those messages without my ego of doubt, without my ego of wondering, does this make sense to this person? This is the craziest thing. Is this going to make sense? And 99.99% you guys write back and say, hey, yeah, it does make sense. Doesn't have to make sense to me. Not my messages. Messages for you, right? But I did have to trust in my own journey too, in my own knowing when it came to my counterpart connection. So even though the physical made no sense to me, even though the physical reality was so counterintuitive to what I was connecting with and feeling in my heart, I just had to keep trusting that. And over the past year, that's what I did. I just kept trusting and connecting with myself and tuning into the energy, and most importantly, tuning into the love. And if you go back through our sacred channelings, the deep dives, if you go back through our workshops, if you go back through our readings, the Sacred Union energy updates, you will hear me say that again and again and again. Which is why I'm blown away. Because that belief was made manifest. Everything we have believed in, everything we have channeled, everything we have known inside of our heart was shown to me in the physical. On Friday, I was face to face with my counterpart. And that was crazy in and of itself because I have seen him so often in my mind, in dream state, telepathic communication, and even I would think that I was seeing him outside, like passing in the grocery store or passing on the street or wherever. And it was never him, but it was such for a moment, it truly looked like him. And that would always like jolt me into connection, right? So after so long of thinking that I was seeing him or experiencing him energetically in my heart, there he was. And he wasn't that old version. Or I should say, it was like we were back to the beginning, where it was a version of him that I recognized. The heart-to-heart, soul-to-soul connection, my sacred partner. It was that version of him, and not the toxic version of him that we had become. When you are in a twin flame connection, for those of you who are either married to your counterpart or in a physical relationship with your counterpart, as you are going through what I call the twin flame journey, I call the other journey maybe the twin soul journey, because there's more peace. It could be the same person, but there's more peace there. There's more harmony there. You're in the higher heart ascension now. You've cleared all the triggers, you've cleared all the wounds, the trauma, maybe not all, but you're in a much more conscious state. Well, when you're first activated to your journey, you don't know what's happening. It's a very rare person who comes to the twin flame journey knowing what twin flames are. You're unconscious of it, and so you might still try to attach the old blueprint of relationships or what you know relationships to be. And so through your experience, through your journey, you will trigger each other, and that can feel intense. And unless you have integration time, which is what I call separation, unless you have integration time, it's like going to your separate corners, you're just going to be attacking each other and defensive and ping-ponging that reflection back and forth to each other, showing each other that mirror without a chance to heal. And so separation is a gift. And that's why I call it a gift. That's why the past 2 years were a gift, as painful as they were, because I was able to, for myself, learn and grow and evolve still with him, still connected with him, always connected with him energetically, but in a space where I was able to honor myself, get to know myself on a deeper level, come into union with myself on a deeper level without confronted with that mirror, without confronted with that reflection, um, so that we could both heal. And when I'm talking about myself, I'm talking about my own personal experiences, because I will not speak for him. Um, that is, something that is very important for me and has always been. If you've noticed, I will always speak for myself and my own experiences, but your masculine will go through their own journey and their own healing and their own growth and their own evolution, and it will look different than the divine feminines, but it's like two sides of the same coin. The way that I explain it in my book is it's like you're on a path, the same path, but you're approaching from different angles, from different perspectives, until you meet, and that's your union. And so for me, it was like everything that I had been connecting with, everything that I had been experiencing energetically, believing in him, was there. And what I was believing in was this version of him, stable and grounded and healed, and the divine masculine. Now, we didn't talk, we didn't speak for long. I had plans, and that was, I realized, part of me honoring myself. And in a place where in the past I would have sacrificed everything, time and plans and everything, what I realized was that that was me also honoring myself and also giving space, because it was awkward. It was very awkward, because it was overwhelming. The energy was overwhelming. But as I was going home, I also felt, I just erupted in this very short lived sob and tears. And what it felt like was my heart just expanded, because it was just love. It was recognition again, and it was love. And it felt like peace. It felt happy. And I want to share one other thing. This past week, you might be tested as you're coming into reunion reconciliation with your counterpart. And I'm going to share more on these teachings, but I want to share more about my personal experience first. This past week, I had an acquaintance from high school who I haven't talked to in 20 years, literally, reach out and say that he had had a crush on me in high school. And it was very sweet, very sweet. But, that was a non-starter for me. It was a non-starter, because what that was showing me, I realized, and what any interaction has shown me, was that my heart, where my heart still is, where my heart still is. Now, I always say be open to possibility, be open to potential, and I have been. But every time that I'm faced with possibility or potential, I come back to my own inner knowing. I come back to what's in my heart, and I hold space for that. And so what this showed me was, it felt kind of like a test. What is your real desire? What is the real truth in your heart? And the truth in my heart was, my person is still my person. That was the truth in my heart. So a few days later, sure enough, unexpectedly, there he is. Now, I say unexpectedly, but it was also kind of expected. I knew eventually I was going to run into him, not just from a physical human standpoint, but because I was getting hit with the signs. And I had said to the universe, I said, I'm not paying attention to these angel numbers anymore, universe. I said, it has to be something very strong. And not that I'm not paying attention, but I also know that I'm so anchored into my embodiment now that it doesn't have the same doesn't have the same resonance that it once did. I'm so anchored into my own inner guidance and my own connection to God that these angel numbers, when they pop up, I don't need to know whether or not I'm aligned, because I'm so anchored in that God's always guiding me, the universe is always guiding me. I'm always in connection with myself and what I'm creating, that it doesn't have that same emphasis, I guess you could say. But there was my number showing up, and it was a number that's been showing up in my journey since the very beginning. And every time I would see it like this, I would know that there would be communication, or I would be seeing him. And so it was kind of almost like just everywhere, on license plates, on clocks, on hockey jerseys, on mailboxes. It was showing up literally everywhere so that I could not escape it. And so some of you have that same number, and let me know what your number is. But I was showing up everywhere, and so I knew. And I wasn't trying to avoid it. I just kept kind of saying, let me just be prepared. Let me just make sure that I am embodying who I want to be. Let me just make sure that I'm embodying love and not in that old version of the past, because I don't want to be in that old version of me. I don't want to be, who I was. I don't want to be in the unconscious. So I remember driving and just kind of saying, whatever happens, happens. Just help me be prepared, God, for whatever is to come in the future, however this unfolds. And sure enough, that afternoon, there he was. It showed me a lot about myself. It showed me, number one, and most importantly, that I can believe in this journey. As wild and crazy as it is, as completely counterintuitive and confronting as it is, as completely crazy and counter as it's been in the past, as crazy as the circumstances were in the past, I just kept holding that space and holding that faith and holding that belief and holding that knowing and anchoring into that. Anchoring into the timeline that I was choosing, anchoring into the version that I wanted, the version that I was choosing, the version of myself that I was choosing. And so there was no choice but for that to be reflected back. And that's what is so mind-blowing to me. Because while I can channel it and believe it, to see it in the physical is just, I have no words. I have no words. Your counterpart is growing. Your counterpart is evolving and changing into the version that you have always seen Divine Feminine. And I have said this time and time again in our readings. The version that you have always seen in them, not as potential, but from the soul level. And their actions and their behaviors might have betrayed that in a sense. But they were only betraying themselves. They were only disconnected from themselves. And that's part of their own rebirth. And that's part of the rebirth that you have been mirroring too, that you have been going through too. And so when we say, do the deep dives, do the inner work, it's because your transformation, you are a portal, Divine Feminine. You are a lighthouse and a portal. And so the more that you shift within yourself, the more your physical world changes. Not just with your counterpart connection, but with every relationship and with every, even with money, even with your business, even it's called alignment. And the more you embody that energy, the more you see everything change and everything shift. And when you are coming face to face with your divine counterpart, always tune into the energy. The energy is what is going to speak. Like I said, we didn't speak, but I could feel it in the energy. I could feel it. And that is what I am connected with. What I had been connecting with energetically, but that was face to face with me now. So when you connect with your counterpart again, and you might have some back and forth. You might have some seeing your counterpart or talking with your counterpart and then some separation cycles. And that's just clearing out the energy. Like I said, for me, it was very awkward, very overwhelming, but that's because there was still energy that was clearing and energy that needed to be integrated to come back to that place of groundedness, peace, love, that your connection is, to anchor into that union that your connection is. And so you might have some back and forth, but when you are walking through the doorway of sustained union, which is very different, then your counterpart, it's like you're going back to the beginning. You're going back to the beginning, but in a much more conscious way. Remember what it was like when you met your counterpart, when you were activated to this journey. How much love there was. It felt like you were in a sacred bubble. We call it the honeymoon period because that's what it was. You were in a sacred bubble where time just stopped. And all that was between us was love and recognition of each other and an honoring of each other. And then the triggers start. Because what's happening is those triggers are showing you where the holes are. The triggers were showing you what was still unhealed, where the wound was, where the trauma was. That was not you causing that pain for each other. It was pain that was already within you that was being activated and coming to the surface. And if you didn't give yourself that space, then you were continuing to project onto each other as each other's mirror. But there has always been love between you, always forgiveness, always harmony at the core, because that is who you are. That is who you are and who you always have been. And that is what true unconditional love is about. True unconditional love is not about making excuses or excusing behavior or continuing toxic energy. That's where many of you had to walk away or disengage. And that's where the gift came from, because then you can connect back to the union, back to the love, back to the energy, which is the truth of your connection. So that now, as you're coming back full circle in your experience, it's sustainable now, because you're in a much more conscious way, so you can have a much more conscious connection. For me, when I was standing face to face with my counterpart, it felt like there was so much history between us. But at the same time, it felt like we were meeting again for the first time. It felt like there was so much, but it also felt like none at all. And it was a very strange juxtaposition, because we have so much history between us. Beautiful history and sometimes painful history, all wrapped up in one. But at the same time, it felt like that was lifetimes ago. And truly, because you are new versions of yourselves, it is. Don't cling to the past. Don't hold on to the past. Use the past as wisdom. Carry that forward into this now moment as wisdom. What did you learn from that? And share that with each other. What did you learn? How did you grow? What new mindset or understanding do you have from those experiences? But how are you taking responsibility and accountability in this new version of yourself? But don't hold on to the past as a point of pain. Don't keep repeating that same story, because that same story can be rewritten. You're in a new, not just a new chapter, but it feels like a brand new book that you in your conscious state are now writing, and you get to write it together. So what do you choose? Who do you choose to be? What version of you do you choose to be? It starts with you, and then it will ripple out into your connection with your counterpart. What do you choose? Keep connecting within the heart space. All right. I don't know if that all made sense. I hope that it did. I hope that it gave you a little bit of something for your journeys. I'm still integrating a lot. I'm still understanding a lot. I'm still holding space for a lot. So I just wanted to come on and share. This journey is real. It is real. It is mind-blowing, but it is real. And there are so many times that we could doubt ourselves, that we could doubt the connection because of what's being experienced or shown to us in the physical. But what have I been saying? Do not focus on the evidence in your physical. The evidence is within you. You are the creator. You are creating your reality by every choice that you make. And that begins with, who do you want to be? What do you want to believe in? How are you honoring yourself? What choices are you making in honoring of yourself? And when you're in connection with another, what choices are you making in honoring your partner? Your union is not outside of yourself, and it never has been. And so focusing on the physical as the evidence or the data is just keeping you in a seeking standpoint, just keeping you seeking for outside validation, when that validation comes from within you. And if you want to work one-on-one with me, you can feel free to reach out to join the Higher Heart Academy, where we go deeper into living the embodiment of your union. Or you can connect with me and see if the Unity Code Intensive is right for you. I'm not disbelieving my journey anymore. And that's something that shifted within me the past 6 months. I'm not disbelieving the work that I do. I've seen it in my clients. You have done incredible work. I've seen the transformations, that you have undergone yourselves. I'm going to keep honoring myself. And I want to encourage you guys to keep honoring your journeys too. What you're experiencing is very real. Keep tuning inside of yourself. Keep connecting with the energy. Keep embodying that sacred union within yourself. Keep embodying that love and keep embodying the version of yourself that you want to be. Because that is how you create your physical reality. It's not any other way. Okay. All right. So, if you want to work one on one with me, I have fundraiser readings coming up this month. I have the Higher Heart Academy where we go deep with our alignment call so you can get personal coaching in our supportive group setting. Or if you want to work in an intensive way with me, where we do the deep dives, we go really one on one weekly into those beliefs to clear those beliefs and really anchor into who you want to be and who you are at the soul level. Make sure that you're reaching out. I am sending you guys so much love, so much light. We'll be back with this new Sacred Union energy update soon. All right, bye.